You remember the X-Files, the truth is out there, but is it up there? This week, more people are talking about the potential existence of extraterrestrial life. NBC's Gotti Schwartz has some context.
On a pitch-black night off the coast of California, newly leaked video allegedly shows one of the U.S. Navy's stealth ships tracking an unknown object in the sky. And after a few minutes,
splashed.
The Pentagon confirming the video was taken by Navy personnel. The images now being reviewed by a government task force set to brief Congress next month on what they call unidentified aerial phenomenon.
There's clearly a stigma around talking about UFOs, actually the current term UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena. A former Navy pilot acknowledged that to 60 Minutes. She says that her colleagues saw a UAP while on patrol.
If I saw this solo, I don't know that I would have come back and said anything because it sounds so crazy when I say it.
And Ezra Klein wrote about it in a recent New York Times column. Quote, even if you think all discussion of aliens is ridiculous, it's fun to let the mind roam over the implications. Pete Dominick Don Calloway and Rina Shah are back with us. And Pete, let me start with you. Pete, let me start with you and something that former President Obama said about this when it came up on the Late Late Show. Watch.
What is true, and I'm actually being serious here, is that there's footage and records of objects in the skies that we don't know exactly what they are.
Now, Pete, I could see the president's gears turning as he's thinking, like, do I say this? Do I not say it? I don't know. I think I'm going to say it. And then he says it. Like, what do you make of it? I don't know what to make of any of this. What do you think?
I have a lot of questions about this. I've been following this. I think it's really interesting and very important. I think that, President Obama in that interview basically said he was the former president, commander in chief for 8 years. You had, presidential daily briefings, and he goes on TV and says something that all of us already know. Look, sometimes we can tell you, you look up, you see things, they don't look normal. Thank you, sir. Give us something. Give us something.
He can't give us anything, though. I mean, what can he actually give us?
Well, there's a lot of questions about the existential dread that people feel knowing or not knowing what this might be and whether or not he can give us. But there's also, so many other foreign countries who also have investigations into this. I think the one thing that makes me feel kind of on solid ground with what we know is that if Donald Trump knew anything, he would be blurting it out. So either they didn't tell him or he doesn't know. But Gideon Lewis Krauss in the New Yorker has, it's the New Yorker, like a 7,000-page piece on this, which I highly recommend everybody read. But it goes in deep depth on what we know and what this could be. But the one phrase that, people keep using is the idea that there is no visible form of propulsion on these things. They go 80,000 feet in less than a second. If a human body were in that, it would turn to soup, they say. So there's a lot of questions.
Don, here's my big question. There may be something out there, and I am not knocking space exploration. Space exploration is necessary for our understanding of the universe. But we have displayed the depths, or the shallowness rather, of our science literacy with this pandemic. We were not able as a human race to wrap around the fact that viruses and vaccines are known science, that the capacity of your hashtag COVID corsage to prevent you from getting killed is knowable science. If we weren't ready for COVID, we ain't ready with the aliens to go to warp speed. You got to crawl for your walk and you got to walk for your warp. We ain't ready, baby. You ain't ready for warp speed. Just start with the COVID corsage. You're not ready.
Listen,
Don, how are we even ready for this conversation at all?
We're not ready. What we know about the Pentagon, not far from my house right here, and I'm going to be measured, is that they're a sophisticated organization. It is highly professionalized. And a part of every government operation administratively is a highly sophisticated, professionalized communications department. They would not have released this and they would not have been discussing this unless there's some internal conversation among serious and smart people, dare I say experts, who say, you know what, we know there's something happening. Maybe we should start to sprinkle a little bit out there in the public just to see how people react, just to see whether or not people freak out. And then we'll decide about whether or not we can talk about the rest of what we know slowly over time. But I think that this could, listen, I don't know nothing. To quote the great Erykah Badu, the man who knows something knows that he knows nothing at all. I know nothing at all. But what I do understand is that the Pentagon put a lot of thought and a lot of time into saying we probably perhaps should say something and begin to prepare the American people for a discussion of this magnitude.
Rina, I think we've got the connection cleaned up, and I want to take the flip side of this. The flip side, as I think about it, is at least this has the benefit of getting people talking about space exploration and about science. Okay. You can't always choose what it is that fires people's imagination. You know what? Generations ago, it was Star Trek that fired people's imagination about space exploration, created an inroads for Nichelle Nichols to increase the number of people of color in NASA and at JPL and Caltech and in aerospace. So maybe there is a back end to this, regardless of whether we find anything, that could really be good for us in general.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say how excited I was to learn the other day that I'm distantly related to the late astronaut Kalpana Chawla, the first South Asian woman to go into space. And we are distantly related. And I was floored because my mother, growing up in India, was absolutely obsessed with her. And I was too, just learning about her life. And I think it's important that we do have that curiosity about what's out there. But the reality is a UFO is just that, an unidentified flying object. It doesn't give us proof of extraterrestrials or aliens. And that's the part that gets people in a panic, right? Are there other intelligent life forms out there? And I actually do believe there are, but we have no way of knowing right now. We are so far away from that. I love to analogize all this to an ant in my backyard. That ant's concept of really its universe is literally just a few feet. And if it sees me on a day, that's its entire concept of what is out there. And we are simply that way. Here we sit and we know there are other galaxies out there. We've only done so little. We've chopped off just a little bit of the bit. We know what over 600 some other planets are out there. But let's talk about solar systems. Let's talk about galaxies and the way we fit in. Yeah. So just by virtue of the evidence that's already out there, I think we all sort of know that there are other intelligent life forms out there. We just have no pathway of knowing. Now, if our governments know that, if other foreign governments know that, or whether ours know that, I think they're not going to let us know at all because they don't want to send people into a panic. Right. Let's not forget what happened. The World, I think it was a radio program. Yes. And people literally committed suicide because they were worried. They thought aliens were coming. They couldn't see it as fiction. So I worry a little bit about the panic that could ensue from a government letting us know more. Yeah, back in 1938 when CBS broadcast that program. Pete, last few seconds before we go.
I should have, just now that Rina's related to this famous, I should have mentioned Buzz Aldrin is my great uncle. He's not, but I wanted to say that. More importantly, I think it's crazy that Marco Rubio on that 60 Minutes segment, Marco Rubio on that 60 Minutes segment said we should investigate this. Marco Rubio just voted not to investigate January 6th, but he does want to investigate UFOs. So there's a whole lot more truth that UFOs exist, and we definitely know that January 6th happened. So I think it's really important to just mention the politics there and how ridiculous it is. Yeah.
But if we're riffing on the politics real quick, Josh,
last 10 seconds.
I was talking to my homeboy about this. I was talking to my homeboy about this earlier. Like, let's just say it was real and the alien invasion went down. Is this enough to make you link up arm in arms with the MAGA? I'm not doing it. Nope.